Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, the show where, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And the PFL is in Cape Town for PFL Africa, the first time over in the PFL. We're heading to Africa, and we've got a stacked main card, but we're not just stopping at the main card here on the Ground and Pound podcast. We're giving you a full card breakdown, starting off in the early prelims, heading to the main event. And as always, if you're enjoying the content here on the Ground and Pound podcast, hit that like and subscribe button, as I am joined by my co-host, Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
And kicking things off in the early prelims, we have Juliet Ukah taking on Cecilia, I'm going to butcher this one, Niedermayr. Carlos, who you got in this one?
What did I take in this one? Okay, it's I went with how I think it is. Niedermayr.
Niedermayr?
Anyway, I think so. I don't know, but Ukah is wild, but she's a little bit more powerful of a striker, is what I got from the video. But Niedermayr is as good on the feet as Ukah technically, but when she gets tagged, Niedermayr can actually change things up and take it to the mat if she needs to, where she looks to be the more skilled grappler of the two. Ukah fights long, she fights smart. She's gonna have to try to avoid the grappling exchanges, but as best she can. But ultimately, I think Niedermayr has the edge in this one.
Yeah, to me, this one is striker versus grappler, but I'm actually going to go with Juliet in this one. I will say Juliet, pretty much a very raw talent at this point. She's very rangy for the division. You can tell that obviously has a pretty substantial reach advantage in this one. What I do like about her is that obviously she does throw a lot into her punches. She fights with a 1-2. She does fight behind the jab. Her punches do tend to be a little bit arm punchy. They're not necessarily getting the whole body and ripping into her shots. She has a nice high kick. She does blast kicks to the body as well. She will go to the calf. And the thing that really made me decide to go with her here is that I did see a decent amount of takedown defense. She sprawls very well. She does really sort of do a good job of using fast hips to defend against wrestlers who have tried to take her down in the past. And to me, that Niedermayr, when I saw her in a lot of her fights, her striking didn't really wow me. She got pressured very, very easily. She does have good takedown defense herself, but I think where she really shines, and I agree with Carlos, is her grappling game is pretty good. When she gets on top, she transitions from position to position. She can cut through people's guard very well. I wouldn't be surprised if she does find a submission, but I'm going to say that the striker here in Juliet gets it done with her arm punches here to kick things off in the prelims. A little bit of dissension to start things off. We always like that here on the Ground and Pound podcast.
Well, I was going that way because she looks strong and it looks like she's powerful, but the grappling, you know what I mean? I hadn't seen enough of it.
Yeah, and you're talking about strong. We're going right into the heavyweights. We've got Abraham Babley taking on Paul Emmanuel Nazi, and I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
Okay, I know that they had the quick change that we had to go through, so I'm going to go through Paul Emmanuel Nazi. Is that how we say it?
That's
But
the
anyway,
one, yep.
he's a big guy. What's very interesting is, he looks like he has potential to be pretty athletic for his size. He's light on his feet. I'm pretty sure he could crack if he has to, if he put something behind it. But doesn't seem to have that meanness, that toughness. Like he kind of just sits back and he's looking for an opening, but he's not skilled enough to look for an opening. So in a lot of his fights, he gets tagged with a shot down the middle. Whereas Babley is going to be bouncing. He's going to be looking for a takedown, possibly get him up against the cage. And what he likes to do is blast a punch down the middle as well. So I think Babley's probably going to catch him. Is he going to hurt him? I don't know, because I've seen him get hit with some shots that didn't look too tough, too hard, but it put him out in one of his previous fights. So I'm going to give the edge to Babley here. I think he's got enough skill to bully him up against the cage and take him down. I just don't think that Nazi has that. I don't know. He just doesn't have that grit. For someone that big, I was expecting to come into his fights and just take people out. And he looks like he's trying to be more technical in his fighting style than kind of a bully. And he should be a bull. But let's go Babley.
Yeah, two for Babley here. I actually pretty much wrote a very similar breakdown here for Paul Emmanuel Nazi. Is literally first line I put, he looks the part, tall, jacked, rangy striker, kickboxer. He looks very technical on the feet. But you would look at him and think, the guy's a specimen. You think he's going to be, throwing flying knees or something that's really going to wow you. But it doesn't really. He just kind of stays very technical and kind of throws one shot at a time. Southpaw, so obviously that lead left kick is one of his main weapons. He can be a little bit low output, which obviously Babley has been a victim of in the past. And he will have the height and reach here against a shorter guy in Babley. He can leave his chin up in the air when he exits the pocket as well, which I think he has to be mindful of a guy like Babley who does crack and does have power. Obviously, Babley training over at Manchester Top Team, who's a guy or a gym that has done, pretty good success. And there's a few guys on this card who will be training at a Manchester Top Team. So obviously training partners getting ready for this card. And I just think that the short notice here for the French fighter, coming all the way over to Africa on a week's notice, I think that'll also play a big factor here for the gas tank and such a big guy. Babley can be a victim of low volume, but I do think that Babley with a full camp here should have enough output and should be the aggressor here in this matchup. But I wouldn't be surprised if Nazi kind of makes this one a little bit closer, but ultimately going with Babley here to get this one done. And next up, we have a name that I'm definitely going to butcher. We have Franz Mlambo taking on Simbashi. It's Hokonya. Carlos, who you got in this one?
In this one, I ended up going with. I just think that he's long. He's got those long limbs. If he wants to take it to the ground, maybe not even to the ground. If he hit a ninja choke, if it goes to the ground, Darce chokes, anacondas, anything where someone that's got those long arms, long can take advantage of. Because Hokonya, he doesn't look like he tries to grapple at all. It actually looks like he's just trying to keep everything on the feet. He does look like he's strong. There's going to be I think a pretty considerable height and reach. Lamba wasn't too sure about the height and reach of Hokonya, but from what I got, it looks like Lambo is going to be able to keep him at bay. Whenever Hokonya is going to come in, he's probably going to have to grapple with him a little bit. That's where I think he could probably look for a guillotine, but or a ninja choke. But yeah, I just see that Lambo seems to be a little bit more well-rounded in every other aspect of it. He's got some submissions. He's got takedown defense. He could strike. I just think that Hokonya is kind of a wild card because in some of his fights, when he tags some of the people, they just go right out. So that could possibly happen. Training with SBG is Lambo. I just think he might be a little bit more educated in the aspects of stand-up and the ground than Hokonya. So let's go, Franz.
Yeah, two for France here for me. Obviously, a lot more experience in MMA as well, with the 21 professional fights to 5 here. And Hokonya, when you look at the level of competition that he's fought, very low-level guys. A lot of the guys have losing records as well. He does have power in the hands, comes from a boxing background, but not necessarily a fundamental boxer. More likes to explode into the pocket with wild hooks. He does show urgency in scrambles to get on top, which I do like. The commentary for some of the tape study that I talked I watched, they talked a lot about how he likes to use his cardio as a weapon. I think that could play a big factor in this fight against France. France stepping up on short notice of about a week here, replacing Hokonya's original opponent. But to me, I think the skill gap is going to be too much here. I think that France, like Carlos said, training at SBG Island, I think that they'll have him ready. I think he's fought the much higher level of competition. And really, all I really am concerned about here is the short notice. When you look at the tape, it's very noticeable that Franz is the better fighter here. Loves to throw spinning wheel kicks. He is a fantastic range management on the feet. Very, very nice snappy head kicks as well. Will go to the low calf kick as well. Switches stances, give guys different looks. Good takedown defense. He has submissions off of his back as well. And I just really question here that I think Hokonya, I don't think he's necessarily for anybody the level of Franz here. So 2 for France here. I'm fairly confident in him to get it done, providing that the cardio of Hokonya doesn't wear him out for the short notice. And next up, two names that I'm definitely going to butcher. We've got Kareem Henniene taking on Ashura Tashambo. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
Um, based on ability, although he's 4-0, he fights like a guy that's 4-0. He's high energy, high output. By round two, he tends to be a little bit labored in his breathing, but still fights through it, and he has decent technique, but he's got to learn to settle down and find that speed that he wants to fight at. Um, I want to go with him, but I've seen Tshitamba. He looks, besides being a little bit more experienced, he just looks more relaxed in a fight. He looks like a little bit more composed in striking. He does have a win by submission, but I just don't know how well versed he is in it. Whereas Henny, I would believe, is I would say he's probably a little bit more skilled on the ground, but I think on the feet is where there's going to be a big problem. Now it's 6'2", 135. I could see him tagging Henny before he gets into range, but once Henny's in range, like, is he going to be able to get the takedown? Does Tshitamba have very good takedown defense? I don't know those answers, but because he's a little bit more chill, he's a little bit more skilled, got a little bit more experience, I'm going to go with Tshitamba this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tshitamba here. I didn't really like what I saw from Kareem. I actually wrote here in my notes that I think he's more concerned with playing to the crowd than actually winning fights. Some of the fights that I saw of his, he'll throw a shot and then he'll just kind of stand and look at his opponent. He'll have his hands right down by his waist, or he throws a spinning, a spinning back fist, and he just puts his arms in the air like this, like, and he doesn't follow up. And even the commentary team's like, why do you not follow up on such a good shot? He throws pretty much, single shots. He dances around on the outside. There's questionable competition as well at 4-0. And to me, Tshitamba here, he had this nasty front kick, which I was pretty impressed by. He was losing in that fight pretty much the whole entire fight, and then he comes out early in the second round and gets this very Anderson Silva-like front kick. And I just think the athleticism here of Tshitamba is going to be all she wrote for Kareem. I think he likes to really use his hands more. I think that the kicks of Tshitamba is going to give him a little bit of a problem here when he fights her on the outside. I think Tshitamba is going to be happy to take the middle of the octagon and really just use his kicks and his fast striking, his overall athleticism here to get it done. But it's hard to be confident in 6-4 and 4-0. So definitely not a hill I'm ready to die on here for Tshitamba. I'm not confident in either guy, but I just trust that Tshitamba takes fighting a little bit more seriously than what I've seen from Kareem in tape study this week. And next up, we have Shannon Van Tonder taking on Bolon Godogo. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I think I ended up going with Godogo in this one. From Van Tonder, he's tall for the weight class, but he enters and exits the danger zone or the pocket with his chin up. And although he does keep a high guard at times, he doesn't do it all the time. When he does keep a high guard, his elbows are 90 degrees, so his body is completely exposed. So if you follow him enough, you might be able to catch him on the way to the liver, crack those lower ribs that are floating, or you can catch him on the chin if he comes out, backs out a little cocky. Grappling seems to be more of his strong suit, but both of these guys are kind of, I know for the 7-2 record in comparison to 3-0, it looks like he's more experienced, but they both seem to be in a development stage. Like, they're looking how to put their skills together right now. And Godogo, because Van Tonder looks to be more of an entertainer at times, at least that's what I saw. At this point, I think that he should be worrying more about his opponent than entertaining the crowd, and I think that's where Godogo could actually capitalize on it and possibly hurt him at times. And, possible finish, don't know, but I think he could hurt him and win the round. So I'm going with Godogo.
Dissension at last. I'm going with Van Tonder here. I think that this fight will come down to the grappling. I think that there's a clear athleticism and striking advantage here for Godogo. But what I noticed in tape study is that Godogo will have nice entries on his takedown. He likes to duck underneath the shots of his opponent and go and mix in the wrestling. And I think that'll be his downfall in this one. I think if he keeps the fight on the feet, he's definitely the better striker. But I just have a feeling that Godogo is going to, basically mix in the grappling. And what I saw on tape here with Shannon Van Tonder is that I think that this guy has got pretty decent. I don't want to say decent BJJ, but for the level, like you said, 7-2 and 3-0, I think that he's definitely going to be the slicker BJJ practitioner here. I think that Shannon Van Tonder knows where his bread is buttered. He likes to blast kicks on the outside. He'll throw knees in the tie clinch, but he's very good at scrambling. And I think once that Godogo will shoot for takedowns, I think that Tonder here will just basically be the better scrambler. He'll find the Kimura to sweep. I saw him do that in a few fights. He'll go for the Kimura from bottom, use that to sweep and transition to get to a better position. And ultimately, I'm going to say he gets a submission victory here. I think that Godogo is far too happy to play and sit in guys' guards. I think that he will mix in the takedown, and I think ultimately that'll be his demise. I think that Shannon Van Tonder here finds a submission. Mark my words. Next up, we have Maxwell Jatu Nana taking on Mikhail Groguhe. I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in the heavyweight fight?
I'm actually going to go with Jatu Nana because, number one, I think he's training with the bigger killers out of the two. I think, the Manchester top team starting to do some big things, and I think that he's one of them. Not that he's going to be this, but he has the skills to do so. Same. I just butchered that, Groguhe. So anyway, fighting out of the Jackson Wink. I don't know if he actually fought out of there, looking at his style, or if he's just visited there a few times, but either way, he looked impressive in round one, but after round one, he looks a bit fatigued and gets very sloppy. And I just think Jantunana, training with top team is going to come in with the cardio. He's going to come in with a plan, pretty much, and he can exploit some of the openings that Groguhe leaves. And I also think that he's just going to push on the gas tank. He's going to be a little bit more defensive in round one and then start to pick his shots from thereafter, possibly getting a decision victory. But with Groguhe, you still got to watch out for him throwing some bombs in the first round. And every once in a while, as the fight's going on, he may be gassed, but he'll throw a bomb out of nowhere. So as long as you stay safe, I'm going to take Jantu Nana.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go with Unana. What's his name? I'm going with the Nara as well, man. I think this fight's actually going to be a pretty good fight. I think both guys have got pretty good styles for this to be a good competitive matchup here. And I'm with you. I don't necessarily know if Groguhe trained at Jackson Wink or just went there once took a picture and left. I don't know. Fought over in PFL Europe before, so obviously some decent tape study on him, but very boxing heavy style. Doesn't throw a ton of kicks, but obviously with the overhands, he does blitz with 1-2s as well. He will chop at the low calf kick as well. He'll throw uppercuts in the clinch. And one of the things I do like that he does as well is he will feint to draw out reactions of his opponents, but he does a good job of sort of doing that. I don't necessarily think that it's going to play a factor here because I do think that Nana, he really will just blast the low calf kick. I think that's going to be the big weapon for him in this matchup with the boxing heavy stance here of Groguhe. Like Carlos said, Nana trains at America. I always want to say American top team, but Manchester top team. Get a new name. Stop calling everything top team. He's very light on his feet for a big guy. Like I said, he blasts inside and outside low kicks, which I think is going to be a great weapon here. He'll throw, not necessarily everything into his shots, but I think for a big guy, he can be very, very measured. He picks his shots very well. He'll mix up shots to the body and head. And I just think overall here, I just think that the kicking is going to be the big factor here. I think it's going to frustrate Groguhe. I think he's going to come in and try and blitz in. That's going to open up the hands and the counters of Nana. I like Unana, what's his name, to get it done this week. 2 for Nana here. Great name. Love that name. And next up, we have Muhammad Atef taking on Kusi Ndebele. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
I went with Atef, Muhammad Atef. Both men prefer to be counter fighters from what I've seen, and they seem to be very skilled at it. So I'm not sure how exciting this fight's going to be. Both look to have the height and reach advantages against most of their opponents because they are pretty like tall for the weight class, but they're basically the same fighter. I'm gonna go with Atef because it seems to be like in his fights he tends to get more of the finishes. You know what I mean? So I don't know if he's just a little bit more accurate. He's got a little bit more pop. I'm not sure exactly what the case is, or if Atef just okay, or if how does this one say Ndebele?
Yeah, Ndebele.
If he just likes to stay safe in his fights, but either way, I'm going with Atef. I think when it comes down to it, he's probably going to be the aggressor of the two. And like I said, he may have some finishing power, or he may just have think when he knows this guy's hurt, he's there to finish. So I'm going to take Atef in that one.
I'm completely on the other side of this one. I'm very confident in Ndebele here to get it done. I wasn't very impressed with Atef when I watched him fight southpaw. Does get pressured very easily on the feet, and he's happy to fight on the outside. He does have snappy low kicks. He's nice check left hook when his opponents enter the pocket. But I noticed on his record, when you see 5-2, the 2 losses he has against higher level guys that he's fought, when he's stepped up against those higher level guys, he's lost, he's been finished. The 5 wins that he's had haven't necessarily come against higher level guys. And to me, when you look at Ndebele, tall, rangy striker, switches stances, will have the height and reach based off of tape study. I wasn't able to find the reach in comparison here, but just when you look at tape study, he does look like he'll have the taller reach advantage here. Great footwork, slides in and out of range well, very calculated on the feet, very measured against his opponents. He does mix in a couple of takedowns as well if he needs to, but where he really gets it done is pretty much with the striking, the rangy sort of flashy style, and he mixes in shots to the body as well. I really like him here. I think Ndebele is going to get this one done. I think he probably finds the finish here. Be interested to see. I'm surprised you went with Atef there. And next up, this one here, I got to say, man, this one was tough to find tape study on. We've got Abdullah Kane taking on Joffy Holton. Carlos, who you got in this one?
Oh, there was a switch. Okay. I guess I'm going to have to say I'm going to go with Abdullah Kane on this one because I didn't see any video on Joffy, but I barely saw any video on Abdullah Kane. I actually saw a different person come up on Abdullah Kane. So, yeah, so like I said, this was another change that I didn't get to. So I'll have to get back to you on this one. But as for now, for the picks, because it's a short notice change, Abdullah Kane's been training for this one. That's who I'm going to have to go with.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to find tape on Kane. His 3 fights were pretty difficult for me to find. From what I could see, 6'5", obviously very, very big heavyweight, very physically muscular. Seems obviously to finish most of his, I think it's 2 out of the 3 by ground, 1 by ground and pound, 1 by submission. So obviously likes to get fights to the ground. And when I looked at the tape study for Holton here, obviously taking this fight, stepping up on short notice, I think this is a fantastic opponent for Kane to just walk through. When you look at Holton, he's probably, the best way I would describe him is basically like a jiu-jitsu nerd at heavyweight. The guy just loves to get fights to the ground. He doesn't have means to get fights to the ground. He'll basically just come out, he'll shoot takedowns from way out, get into the clinch, and he won't necessarily pull guard, but he'll just happily do whatever it takes to get fights to the ground. I think that's a recipe for disaster here against a huge guy like Kane. All of the 4 losses that Holton has had, he's been finished. I think that's exactly what happens here. He lacks the wrestling to be able to control where the fight goes. I think if he comes out here and he shoots a sloppy takedown, he gets finished, whether that be him, getting Kane back on top of him and just getting bullied and beaten up with ground and pound, or submitted. Either way, I think Kane gets this one done by, I'm going to say, vicious ground and pound early in round one here. Holton taking this fight on short notice. Obviously, flying all the way from the UK all the way to Africa, short notice, and a guy that likes to grapple. The guy sucks. Let's just be real. Kane's going to run through him. And next up,
fucks me again.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, guys. If you tuning into this one, some of these fights were pretty difficult to find tape study on. I had to do Carlos and I both had to do a lot of tape study for some random guys, similar names and stuff. But this one's actually not too bad. We got Justin Clarke taking on Toshel Awa. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I ended up going with Awa. Clarke is a kickboxer with limited MMA experience, and from the looks of it, it looks like he has limited kickboxing experience. Going up against Awa, he also has limited experience himself, but not much skill or technique. He bounces from boxing to kickboxing to MMA to arm wrestling to slap fighting. I think what he's doing right now is he's like, listen, I'm a big, strong, somewhat athletic guy. I could generate a lot of power in whatever I do. I'm going to see where my niche is, take it. So I think he's trying to find himself. So I don't know how committed he is to winning, but what I do know, or how committed he is to training, but what I do know is I feel like he's probably going to be able to put those paws on Clarke and get him out of there. Clarke doesn't have, he doesn't hold a high guard, throws a lot of kicks. Punches are accurate, but they don't seem to be those kind that someone like Awa has to be too nervous about if he plays it safe and comes in and swats him with one of those overhand rights. Did see him get knocked out in slap fighting doing video study, and I just don't know if Clarke can hit him before Awa hits Clarke. So I'm going to take Awa. Obviously, these are two guys going to be kind of wild, like a schoolyard fight, 2 5-year-olds swinging at each other until one of them down. So I'm going to take Awa to hit him with those big paws. Who you got?
Yeah, Clarke actually trains over at CIT, which is DDP's gym. Obviously training with Dracus Duplessis, Cameron Simon over there in South Africa. Very tall, very muscular build. Does leave his chin a little bit high in the air, which worries me at times. He tries to stay technical, but can be suckered into brawls. And obviously, he's still only 2-0 as a professional, so not necessarily a wealth of experience here. One thing I did like is that he will duck underneath shots to try to mix in a body lock takedown, which I think would be a good way to kind of drain on the gas tank here of Awa. Awa, like Carlos said, obviously, a very, very huge, strong, muscular guy. I think that would be a good path to victory to mix in some grappling here. And obviously competing in power slap. What a fucking stupid sport. I wrote that in my notes. What a fucking stupid sport it is. Huge power, obviously, in the paws, like Carlos said, but isn't very technical. And I just think here that one thing that DDP gym is known for is having good game plans. I think that Clarke comes in here and mixes in some wrestling. I do think that both guys can crack. I think Clarke's a little bit more technical. He's a little bit taller, a little bit rangier as well. I think this is really just going to come down to does Clarke get suckered into a brawl or does he stay technical? I'm going to say he stays technical and ultimately finds a victory here, mixing in some wrestling and maybe even finding a ground and pound win here. But both these guys, it's going to be whoever lands first. But doing tape study on this one was just ridiculous. Like power slap, what the fuck? Come on, Dana.
It's Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Finally, we have names that we have. We have graphics on the screen, ladies and gentlemen, for the main card here for PFL Africa. And if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as we break down the opening fight here on the main card of Corey Anderson taking on Dennis Goltsov. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Corey Anderson moving up to heavyweight. Who you got?
It's tough not to take Corey Anderson because I feel like he can out-wrestle Goltsov in this fight. Now, this is not a wrestling match. It's a fight. And I feel that on the feet, Goltsov has probably got the heavier, more impulse strikes on the feet. I do feel that on the ground, he's probably got the edge in submissions, but how good are you in submissions when you're on your back and you're defending Corey Anderson's takedowns and his ground and pound? So, and this is Corey Anderson new at heavyweight. So I don't know if this is going to be his new weight class or if this just he's taking it because he wants to stay busy and he wants to get a fight. So I don't know how this is going to go, but I feel Corey Anderson should win this. But I'm going with Goltsov because I think he's got a few more ways to win. I don't think Corey Anderson really thinks about submission most of the time when he's wrestling, but I do feel that Goltsov does. And I feel that he's actually going to look for that finish in the submission, even more so than standing up on the feet. But I do think he's got the edge standing. Who you got?
Yeah, Corey Anderson finally wins gold at 205, and all of a sudden, he moves up to heavyweight, and all of a sudden there's just like no 205 at Bellator, so that's kind of a wash. So that's kind of interesting. But you've got the current heavyweight champion for Dennis Goltsov taking on Corey Anderson, the current 205 Bellator champ. So be interesting to see how this one plays out. But I'm going to go with Goltsov here. I think this fight really just comes down to what weight to me Corey Anderson comes in. If he's kind of coming into this fight, kind of looking a little bit like Ryan Spann, kind of a little bit overweight, a little bit too heavy. I think Goltsov runs through him. If he comes in like, 220, 225, kind of lean and mean, I think he has the speed advantage. I think that he could definitely, on the feet, maybe find the chin of Goltsov, and basically just use his speed and his athleticism here, coming up at heavyweight, just to kind of catch Dennis Goltsov off course here. I just think, to be honest with you, that Goltsov here is going to be the better grappler. I think that Anderson's going to struggle to take Goltsov down. He does have a Sambo background. I think the multiple-time Sambo world champion. You see in tape study that if he gets into the clinch, he'll try and get double unders and use his foot sweeps to get into dominant positions. He has good throws as well. And I just think this one really just comes down to what kind of shape Anderson comes in here. But ultimately, I am going to go with Dennis Goltsov here. I think that he's going to find a late stoppage here on Anderson. Carlos mentioned earlier about, I don't know what his submissions are going to be like off of his back. I know that Dennis Goltsov got a triangle in one of his previous fights recently off of his back. He does have good submissions off of his back, long limbs, and he doesn't necessarily fight at the high end of 265. He kind of comes in at like 240, 245. He is pretty light on his feet. I think he's one of the more dynamic heavyweights, even though he can be a little bit plodding as fight goes on. But I'm going with Goltsov here. I think that the wrestling's going to be there. I think he can keep Anderson at bay in the striking and ultimately get a second or third round stoppage victory. And next up, we have Takashi Izumi taking on another name that I'm going to butcher. We've got Makashurum Zaynukov. How do you pronounce that? Zaynukov. And I'm gonna kick things off here. This one to me should be one-way traffic. I'm going with the Russian here. Don't make me pronounce that name again. Izumi is 2017 World wrestling semi-finalist. The guy's pretty much just a heavy wrestler. All 6 of his wins coming by decision. He has been knocked out multiple times, and to me he just lacks a lot of really experience inside MMA, picking up the sport far too late. 36 years old, a little bit undersized for 155 as well. Can't really get the respect of his opponents with the hands. His striking, he looks completely out of his depth, and to be honest with you, when his opponent kind of rushes him and he kind of panics, he just gets into a clinch. He wants to just hold people up against the fence. I think here with the wrestling and the Sambo background here of Azukov, I think that he's going to be able to have the better grappling in terms of keeping this one on the feet. I just think that the striking is going to be better. I think that there's going to be absolute levels between these two in the striking here, and I think that's going to be pretty much all it takes here for the Russian here to get it done. I don't really see why this fight's on the main card. I don't really see why Izumi's a signing that they've decided to do at 36 years old. Good wrestler, but way past his prime and doesn't have a whole lot in the striking. So I think the Russian here gets it done, keeping this one on the feet. I think we might see this one as a boring fight where both guys clinch each other up against the fence, but I think the striking of the Russian's going to get it done. Carlos, who you got in this one?
Well, I went with Zaynukov. I do think that they put this on the main card because Zaynukov probably, from what I've seen, has better stand-up ability than Izumi. I think they're looking for a knockout. Just saying, Izumi, his wrestling might cancel out Zaynukov. Don't know. Zaynukov probably has some heavy pressure that he's never felt before, and vice versa. Izumi may be able to get back up off the ground. He may be able to take him down. I'm not sure, but what I am sure of is that Zaynukov, whether it's ground and pound or standing, is probably just punish Izumi, whether it's on the ground or standing. So that's who I went with.
Yeah, I think you could be right. Actually, I think that could be the thought process here for the PFL. But I will say that the Russian, if you watch some of his fights, his striking isn't all that, and some of his fights are a little bit boring as well. So I just wonder if maybe this is put there to give him an opportunity to get some sort of highlight reel KO because they want to push him inside the PFL. But this fight very strange to me.
Yeah, but
fuck it, it's the
go ahead.
PFL. They do what they want. You know what I mean? They do what they want. But one fighter that does whatever he wants. You got AJ McKee taking on Ahmed Magomedov, and I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
Okay, I feel McKee is, he usually finds a way to be on top, and his scrambling ability, especially being at 45, I think is a lot better than at 55. He's a lot more difficult to control at 45 than he is at 55. The guys aren't as big. Um, Magomedov, heavy wrestler, so I think the wrestling ability of him, he's going to try to get this down. But I also do believe that AJ McKee may end up winning the scrambling situation and might be on top. And he may be looking for some ground and pound and getting that submission. What I do feel is on the feet, I do believe that McKee does have the advantage. I don't think his striking style looks a little awkward to me. Like he looks a little long, but he's not wide, but he doesn't throw straight all the time. Like I don't know how to say it, you know what I mean? But I think he doesn't throw to hurt you. I think he throws to just to touch you, you know what I mean? And in that he will end up finishing you. You just don't know when the hard shot is coming. You know, with um with Magomedov, he was hurt several times, I think, when he was fighting against Nathan Kelly. I think it was Nathan Kelly that he was fighting. And I just see AJ being able to touch that chin a few times and just possibly get him out of there or just get him hurt for the round and get the decision. Magomedov's a tough guy. He bounced back in that fight. And I just think that I think McKee's scrambling ability will probably be the factor in this. And I think his striking will be a factor as well.
Yeah, two for McKee here. I think he's got to get back on track. He definitely had a lot of hype before the Paul Hughes and the Pitbull losses that he's had. He was somebody that I know a lot of people were excited to see inside the UFC. So that kind of run and that hype's definitely slowed down recently. But Southpaw will switch stances, no more for his scrambles and his submissions. But on the feet, I agree with Carlos. I think he's going to have an advantage here in the striking. I do think that out of the two, he's a little bit more comfortable on the feet. Magomedov is pretty much exactly what you know the name to be. He's that Dagestani gritty wrestler style. Will look to take this fight to the ground along with all of his other fights. And I'm with you. I think this fight really just comes down to can Magomedov get the takedowns and control AJ on the ground. I don't think he can. I think if he does get a takedown, I think that AJ will be able to reverse positions, get into more dominant positions, or at least get back to his feet where Magomedov's going to get tired from shooting constant takedowns. I think the damage is going to be on the side of McKee. He's going to win probably a decision here. And I'm with you. I think that Magomedov showed toughness in his fight against Kelly, obviously to be able to come back. But Kelly's not necessarily proven to be a whole lot of an entity inside the PFL, especially against a guy like AJ McKee. 24 fights as a professional, great submissions as well. I wouldn't be surprised if AJ pulls off some sort of submission here as well. But I'm going to say AJ wins by 29-28 decision here. And next up, we have the co-main event. We have Samuku Inaba taking on Dakota Ditcheva. Finally, the PFL gets this girl a fight. I know that she's talked a lot about being unhappy with the PFL, of not getting a fight. She wants out of her contract. She wants to go to the UFC. Carlos, who you got in the co-main event?
Well, I went with Ditcheva. Inaba's, she's strong. She's quick. She's got good technique. She's tough, but that said, Ditcheva's strong. She's quick. She's got good technique. She's fast. She's quick on her feet. She's powerful. She's strong. She's focused. She's got a whirlwind of offense. She's kind of like a Yahia, just controlled, more punishing. And I don't know if there's any woman that can in the PFL that can actually like get her to the ground. And in the UFC, I don't even know if there's any woman that's going to be able to do that either. Length is also like a big factor in those takedowns. She can get her hips away from you while keeping you up against the cage or just pushing your hips off. Like she's got very good down blocking ability. Like she's I don't know. She's an assassin with her strikes. Ditcheva. That's it. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, no shock here that I'm picking Inaba. No, of course, we're going with Ditcheva. Ditcheva fucking smashes everybody inside the PFL. Inaba, 34 years old, volume striker, not necessarily known for her power. She's not going to get takedowns. This is, as I always say, man, one-way traffic. Ditcheva is going to be a huge favorite for a reason. She's probably going to finish Inaba. Great Muay Thai, great striking. You know, like you said, she's too fast, too strong, too tall. And I'm just going to throw in, she's also sexy as fuck. Let's also just throw that out there. But yeah, Ditcheva, man. There's not really much to say here. I think that the PFL needs to either, give her more fights and do a good job of marketing her. She's on loads of, PFL advertisements, but she's not necessarily fighting that much. I don't blame her for wanting out of her contract, but she's going to run through whoever they put in front of her here in the PFL. And I expect it to be the same here against Inaba in the co-main event.
So is this your new wife now?
No,
Ditcheva,
don't
is this
tell
wife?
don't tell my real wife about Ditcheva. This is like my side
Okay,
piece
all right.
that doesn't know she's a side piece.
I understand. I got you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And if you're enjoying the content here on the Ground and Pound podcast, hit that like and subscribe button as we break down the main event. We have Johnny Eblen taking on Costello Van Steenis. I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this one?
This one was a little tougher than I thought, is because I believe that Costello is when it comes to being economical on the feet, he doesn't economy of motion. He doesn't waste a lot of motion. He doesn't waste a lot of strikes on the feet. Whereas Eblen is just go go go. He doesn't really have a plan for setup with strikes. He just does it, and he's kind of hoping to just take you down or just make you wilt under the pressure. It's not like he's throwing big shots on the feet either. On the ground, Van Steenis, he's definitely well versed in submissions. He's got good scrambling ability. And I do believe that if Eblen gets him to the ground, he'll be able to get back up as well if he wants to. I think he's going to kind of look for the submissions, probably look for sweeps to get on top. But Eblen has got good balance. He's very hard to just sweep. And I just think that Eblen's going to have a lot of ground control if Van Steenis wants to play that off his back jiu-jitsu game. I do know that Gegard Mousasi, one of my favorite fighters, I believe that Steenis has a lot of Mousasi in him. I feel that Eblen caught Mousasi on the end of his career, and that's why he won, because I was pretty pissed about that. I don't want to see Eblen lose for that reason. I just think Van Steenis has a lot of resistance towards Eblen. He didn't look good in his last fight against who was that? Was it Fabian Edwards? And it looked like Edwards showed a couple of holes in his game. Unfortunately, he couldn't exploit it. But that fight, even though it was unanimous decision for Eblen, Fabian did a lot of things that made it look like that decision was a little closer than a unanimous decision would show. So I don't know if Costello has the striking ability to exploit the openings on the feet, but I do know on the ground he may be a little bit more difficult to control. I'm having an issue here, but all right, I'm gonna go the safe route, and I'm gonna go Johnny. This was a decision on the spot because I want Van Steenis to win because I want Mousasi to get revenge, but I'm gonna take Eblen. I think his pressure may be too much.
I'm happy that you're sort of not necessarily flip-flopping, but you see that there is a way that Van Steenis wins this one, because I looked at this one and I'm just not that impressed with Johnny Eblen. Like I looked at this fight and I watched tape on both these guys and I was like, I'm surprised Johnny Eblen is 16-0. Like when you watch him fight, especially in his last 3 fights against like Fabian Edwards, Impa Kasang, and I, like he's not looked that impressive. Like, I know he still, has that undefeated confidence about himself, but he seems to lack athleticism. He can be a little bit flat-footed as fights go on. Like you said, it's pretty much just his pressure that kind of keeps him in fights and his ability to get takedowns. And I think I say all of that to say I am going to pick Johnny Eblen, but I'm literally on the edge of picking Van Steenis. That's how confident I am in Johnny Eblen. I would not be surprised here if Van Steenis pulls this one off. I think in terms of the kickboxing, I think that Eblen might be a little bit outmatched in terms of the speed. I like the way that Van Steenis kind of blast kicks to all three levels. He can definitely hurt people to the body. He can definitely rip the calf kick and surprise you with a head kick. Like Carlos said, he's very, very active off of his back. He might be able to use that to sweep. I do think here, realistically, this fight will come down to Eblen being able to get takedowns and top control. Fabian Edwards does a fantastic job of getting back to his feet. I'm not sure that Van Steenis is going to do that. He might be, sort of play jiu-jitsu here and be happy to say, sort of lay on his back and play jiu-jitsu, which might cause Eblen to be able to rack up a lot of control time and ultimately win rounds. I think if this one stays on the feet, I think if Van Steenis can keep this one on the feet, he could definitely, land the better shots and make this one a very competitive back and forth fight. Ultimately, I am going to pick Johnny Eblen here. If he wrestles, if this one stays on the feet, I think Van Steenis can have success. I don't think he'll sub Eblen. I do think he has good submissions, but generally speaking, when you get high level wrestlers and guys that want to, lay on their back, I take the wrestler with the position over submission style any day. But I do think that Eblen's due a loss. I don't know if it's going to be this one, but it might be. But that's how unconfident I am in Van Steenis here and Eblen. But I'm going to go with Eblen ultimately here to get it done. And that is us done for PFL Africa. And I have to let you guys know what is here on the channel. We have the dog of the week for UFC 318, Dustin the Diamond Poirier taking on Max Blessed Holloway. Full highlight reel tape for my favorite betting underdog in that video. And also Carlos and I have done the full card breakdown for UFC 318, detailed breakdown of each individual matchup on that whole entire card, stacked pay-per-view this Saturday, along with PFL Africa that we've just broke down. And before we wrap things up, Carlos, what do you want to say to the people?
Just want to say, as enjoyed the content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And like I said, we love bringing this to you, and see you on the next one.
Yeah, this one was tough, so I hope you guys appreciate all of the research and all of the terrible names that I had to butcher on this one. But if you're enjoying the content, man, like we always say, hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.